I wish I could tell you that I had a single distinct realization that I was no longer considered a member of the family. In actuality, though, it gradually caught up with me. It resembles the dust in the corners of a house that no one bothers to clean, similar to the quiet that results from calling someone's name and receiving no answer. This was not always the case. Or perhaps it was, but I chose not to see it. However, everything fell into place that evening at my father's birthday supper. Everything had been prepared by me. My hands prepared every single dish on that crowded table. Honey glazed carrots, roast beef, garlic mashed potatoes, homemade dinner rolls, and even the dumb chocolate cake that my sister insisted wasn't store-bought. I had prepared for 2 days. I spent the first 2 days cleaning and arranging the table, ensuring that everyone has their preferred sides, sauces, and beverages. In an attempt to make it extra special, I foolishly created place cards. And still smells like the oven when I entered the room wearing my apron? Nobody even raised their eyes. "You must be tired," no one said. Nobody exclaimed, "Wow, this is incredible." Not even a straightforward thank you. They simply continued speaking. I'm laughing. As if I were invisible, I reached for plates. Clara, my younger sister, was nearly halfway through her glass of wine and was raving about her new position as if she had just won the title of Universe Queen. "I'm really fortunate," she remarked, fluttering her hair over her shoulder. "Everyone at work treats me with such respect. I mean, it's refreshing." I saw her swoon in awe as I stood there with the last bowl of salad. My mother gave a proud nod. "They certainly do, my dear. You are valuable." At last, I put down the bowl and sat down at the extreme end of the table. At first, I couldn't find a chair. I had to go to the kitchen and get one. Nobody took notice. Nobody gave a damn. During supper, I grabbed a roll halfway through. "Wow, you're eating?" Clara asked, raising her eyebrows. "I didn't expect that after all that cooking, you would still have energy." A few individuals chuckled. I didn't. I froze my hand in midair. I surveyed the table. Everyone fell silent. However, nobody expressed regret. Not my sister. My parents are not involved. Even my older brother Jason, who used to stand up for me as a child, failed to do so. He continued to chew while looking down, as if that were commonplace, as if I were the assistant. Nobody volunteered to clean up after supper. Obviously not. While they lounged in the living room, arguing over what movie to watch, I stood in the kitchen for almost an hour. I could clearly hear Clara's voice once more. This is how she has always been. Some folks merely take pleasure in becoming housewives. That was the last straw. I wasn't being a housewife. They were taking me for granted. After everyone had gone and the dishes had been cleaned, I sat on the kitchen floor with my back to the refrigerator that evening and let the tears fall silently down my cheeks. Not the trembling, theatrical tears, the silent variety, the kind that occurs when something inside of you breaks and you know deep down that it can no longer be fixed. I reflected on all the years I had spent doing this, cooked, cleaned, filled in for Clara when she lost her memory of family events due to intoxication. Jason was assisted 4 times. I watched as Mom sobbed over the invoices. It was me who called off plans. I worked late hours. When I wanted to shout no, you said yes, because I believed that was the definition of love. Now, though, it seemed like servitude now, as if I were an inconvenience, similar to an underpaid maid, an osin. I didn't get any sleep that evening. I simply lay there and stared at the ceiling while mentally hearing their laughs. And I pondered, why have I stayed here? Why do I continue to try? And more significantly, what would occur if I simply vanished? If the meals ceased to come, what would they do? If the washing ceased folding by itself? If the house ceased cleaning itself by magic, would they even be aware? Alternatively, would they presume that the kitchen fairy had taken a day off? That evening, I decided something. Not because I was angry, not because I was depressed, but from a sharper object, colder, clearer. Decide. They believed that I would never go. They believed I was in need of them. Even though I always had to pull up my own chair, they considered me fortunate to be seated at their table. However, what they were unaware of was my next course of action. Now that I think about it, I see that the dinner table wasn't the beginning. No, that evening was simply the tipping point. The day everything I had been burying for years came to the surface. The reality? I had always been different. The extra, the default, the one who filled in the spaces that nobody else wanted to go near. Clara was the golden child growing up. Everyone agreed. She had the ideal demeanor, the ideal hair, and the ideal smile. Her demeanor was charming, even when she was harsh. It was a time when she was youthful and reckless. It was merely a phase when she failed. However, I was the one who kept quiet. I was the more experienced individual. It was the one who never made trouble. Do you understand the true meaning of that? I couldn't be seen. I can still recall my 12th birthday. On a Saturday, it fell. Finally, having a weekend birthday made me pleased. In addition to creating my own wish list, I had prepared cupcakes the night before to take to school the following week. I got up early that morning, dressed in my finest gown, and went downstairs. Nobody wished me a happy birthday. Nobody. Rather, my mother was preoccupied with Clara's cheer competition. She wanted her water bottle identified, her socks located, and her outfit cleaned. Dad was waiting to take them in the car already. My mother handed me $20 and said, "I'll be back later. Get yourself a lunch, please." I gave a nod. I refrained from crying. However, I skipped lunch as well. I simply sat with those cupcakes beside the window. They were never brought to school by me. My older brother, Jason, was unique. He was my ally for a while. He helped me with math, showed me how to tie my shoes, and even gave me chocolates while Mom was trying to get healthier. Then he became 13. All of a sudden, I was a bother. He became busier, farther away. Not as patient. I also discovered how to stop inquiring, discovered how to prepare my own toast. I learned how to iron my own clothes, learned to vanish. I put in more effort as a teenager. Perhaps if I just do more, they'll notice me, I reasoned. I received all A's. My honor roll ceremonies were attended by no one. A writing contest was won by me. That's great, but do you think you could assist Clara with her homework? Mom said. She's having trouble, so I did. Clara passed algebra with my aid. Jason's college essays were proofread by me. When Mom started having migraines, I cleaned the kitchen. When Dad forgot, I paid the bills. And gradually, when they needed something, they began to call me. And only when items were needed. I once worked part-time at a bookshop in my senior year. I adored it. The silence, the scent of paper, and the way I was regarded as a valuable conversation starter by the clients. My goal was to save money for a trip to Oregon. The trip would be limited to a week. Me, the coast, and perhaps some solitude. Clara then caused Dad's automobile to crash. Additionally, they required funds for repairs. Whose savings came to the rescue? Nobody inquired. They simply made an assumption. In any case, you weren't actually planning to travel, were you? Yes, Jason answered. You're always so sensible, Mom said with a smile. Not like your sister. I gave a nod and called off the trip. Nothing changed, not even as an adult. They immediately put me back in that unpaid position when I returned home from college, only to give me time to get my feet up. The grocery runs were done by me. Half of the bills were paid. While Clara was finding herself, I took care of her children, prepared for the holidays, cleaned the restrooms, changed the light bulbs, filled prescriptions, without being asked, since asking would suggest that it was voluntary. Furthermore, it was never. On one occasion, I was cleaning the tiles in the hallway when a friend unexpectedly stopped by. After silently observing me, she asked, "Do they help you, ever?" I didn't respond. She gave a head shake. "Why do you remain?" And I recall half-jokingly adding, "Because I'm the glue." She gave me a look and uttered something that stuck in my memory. "You can use glue." However, nobody ever expresses gratitude after looking at glue. Even when things are falling apart, they simply expect it to hold everything together. I couldn't stop thinking about that after my father's birthday meal that evening. I had been trying to keep things together for about that long, about the lack of recognition it had ever received. Nobody has ever inquired about my well-being. They had never congratulated me on my victories, consoled me on my defeats, or just observed me. They simply witnessed my abilities, as well as what I might do to help. I was no longer a daughter. I was a function, a part, a convenience. And I had performed that role so successfully for so long that I had nearly forgotten that I had the right to desire more, that I had the right to refuse, that I had permission to go. I therefore didn't feel angry that night as I sat up in bed and gazed at the ceiling. I sensed release. It was as if something had finally burst out inside of me and whispered, "You don't need to continue defending them. Now you can relax." And I returned the whisper, "I've done so already." I felt like I was relearning how to breathe when I said no for the first time. There was no drama. There was no big announcement, no yelling battle, and no pyrotechnics. It was a single word, no. However, it reverberated more loudly than any monologue I had practiced for years. On a Wednesday, it occurred. I had just arrived home from work, always fatigued. My feet hurt. Standing had left my back stiff. I was holding a supermarket bag in one hand and a ringing phone in the other. Clara was the one. Once more, text following text. "Tonight, are you able to watch the children? I have a date, just for a few hours. They only need to be bathed and put to bed after having previously eaten. Please don't." No. Is this acceptable? Only a guess. As usual. With my coat still on and my fingers frozen over the keyboard, I stood in the hallway. I typed 2 letters after that. NOI sent it. Quiet. The flood followed. "Hold on, are you serious? What should I do at this point? You mentioned that you adored them, right?" I gazed at the display. My heart pounded more quickly than it ought to have. My hands were trembling a bit. However, my face, be calm. This time, I didn't respond. And I felt for the first time in years, free. Mom felt cold the following morning. I sensed that even though she didn't say it directly, the way she handed me the butter at breakfast was tense. When I refused to iron Dad's shirt, he sighed. Clara, who appeared to have lost a limb, was the target of the pointed looks. Nobody expressed gratitude. Now, though, they saw that I was gone. That was novel. I began to retreat little by little. I stopped preparing dinner on Thursdays. I only folded my own laundry anymore. I let Clara take care of the babysitting on her own. Once, Jason called to ask me to fix his internet, something I had always done for him. I let the voicemail go. He didn't return any calls. It felt wrong at first, as if I were violating some unseen law, as though I were violating a contract that I hadn't even signed. But then I realized they didn't inquire. They simply anticipated. So I continued to retreat, and I reclaimed a small part of myself for each no I gave. When I arrived home early a week later, I saw my mother in the kitchen, mumbling to herself in irritation, while a burned casserole sat on the counter. She gave me a look. "Oh, you're at home." I gave a nod. She hesitated. "Dinner is a complete mess. I have no idea what took place. I did as instructed." I poured myself a drink of water and walked past her. She waited. I didn't volunteer. "And when I went upstairs?" she inquired. "Please, could you simply repair it?" I gave her a direct glance. "I believe you have it." I then turned to go. I overheard her saying to my father later that evening, "She has been behaving oddly recently. Her sensitivity has always been present. She might simply be exhausted. Are you worn out?" I was worn out. However, it was no longer tangible. It was the kind of fatigue that makes you forget how to stand up for yourself after lifting someone for a long time. Okay, I was gaining knowledge. I heard something one Saturday. Clara's voice came from the living room as I was picking up laundry from the hallway. "We'll have to start cooking for ourselves if she continues to behave in this manner, I promise." Then she chuckled, as if it were a joke, as if the idea of doing anything at all was absurd in some way. I remained silent. I simply returned to my room and shut the door. However, something hardened within me. They remained unchanged. They weren't developing. They were awaiting my folding. Like a good little assistant, they wait for me to get back into place. But what were they unaware of? I had finished waiting. A few evenings later, I was brewing tea in the kitchen. The living room was where they were. I'm laughing. Speaking. I heard my name after that. "She is acting quite dramatic. We didn't really force her." Then someone, possibly Mom, answered, "This is how she has always been, quiet, erratic, and extremely sensitive." I watched the water boil while holding a tea bag. I remained motionless, didn't weep, didn't slam a door or barge in. I simply listened, and I felt something break inside of me. Not like throwing a plate, like a lock that clicks shut. I was finished. I opened my laptop while seated at my desk that evening. I had been thinking about moving out for months. I had rescued. I had a plan. Apartments were even on my bookmarked list. However, I had never fired a shot. So far, I completed the application, made the deposit payment, signed the lease. 2 weeks from now is the move-in date. They wouldn't find out until I left. Since this period, I didn't ask. I was surprised by how little the boxes were. I always thought moving out would be a huge occasion, complete with trucks, mayhem, and heartfelt farewells. However, in fact, it was silent. I had very little. Books, clothing, and a few mugs I liked made up the majority of my possessions. I didn't have as much clutter as my siblings had. There was never room for it. In any case, the house never quite felt like mine. I was just somewhere, worked, cooked, cleaned, but did not survive. At night, I began packing, once everyone had gone to sleep. One box at a time. Nobody took notice. Nobody inquired as to why the bookcase was somewhat empty, or why there were a few extra hangers in my closet. It seemed as though I had perfected the technique of gradually and systematically disappearing until nothing remained but stillness. My lease was signed, made the deposit payment, grabbed the keys. Across town, a one-bedroom flat. Tiny, modest. However, it had a balcony that was exposed to the sun in the morning. It was also mine. That week, Clara made several phone calls. She required assistance with the children, required me to get groceries, asked me to verify the menu for Dad's impending retirement celebration. I didn't respond. Voicemails were left by her. I paid attention, however, I didn't respond. Jason texted the group about Sunday brunch with the family. I let it read. One evening, my mother knocked on my door. "Are you all right?" I raised my eyes from my computer. "Yes." Simply exhausted. She scowled. "You have been aloof." I gave a shrug. "Perhaps I'm simply finished." She blinked. "What's finished?" I didn't respond. Without pressing, she walked away. I took one final stand in the kitchen the night before I went. The counters were cleaned, operated the dishwasher. The lights were switched off. I then made my way to the hallway where, for years, I had hung my keys every day. I removed them, wrote a message. "I appreciate everything. I wish you luck in arranging dinner." The spare key was on the counter when I left it, and left. Nobody saw me go. Nobody followed me. At first, no one even noticed that I was gone. And truthfully, the most agonizing aspect was that, how simple it was to vanish. It was a calm first day in my new apartment, eerily silent. I brewed coffee for myself, sat down on the ground, opened the window and let the sunlight in. I didn't look at my cell. I didn't have to. Soon enough, they would discover. As expected, my phone rang around 4 p.m. I allowed it to ring. Jason then arrived. Then Clara. The group chat then blew up. "You're where? Brunch was missed by you. Is this a joke? Are you crazy?" Texts replaced the calls. The writing became paragraphs. I didn't respond. Clara left me a voicemail on the third day. "You went? Like that? What should we do at this point? Mom can't prepare meals for everyone." She didn't sound hurt. "Don't worry. Just a pain in the ass." It says it everything. That afternoon, I went grocery shopping for myself. I didn't figure out how much the others would consume for once. I didn't consider which elements were too spicy for Dad or who preferred certain brands. I enjoyed almond milk, so I purchased it. I decided to buy frozen dumplings instead of cooking them. Just because I could, I lighted a candle that smelled like fresh linen. Clara texted once more later that evening. "It's petty." "You could have just said something," Jason continued. "Mom, we're related." We discussed the situation. I gazed at the texts. I ran my fingertips across the screen. Finally, I responded as follows. "I've been doing everything for you all for years. Have any of you spoken to me before?" Quiet. "Then you're exaggerating." That was the end of it. Don't apologize. No introspection. Simply denial. I made pancakes for myself and shut off my phone that weekend. The first batch was burned. I laughed, ate them nevertheless. Yes, it was silent. It wasn't lonely, though. It was quiet. On Monday morning, Mom sent one more message. "If nothing else, could you email us your meal recipes?" Clara almost burned the stove when she attempted to make the stew. I grinned. Didn't respond. because now they had to do it themselves. They were still in the dark about what was going to happen. They continued to believe that I was bluffing. I still believed that if I calmed down, I would return. However, they were unaware of I hadn't simply walked out of the house. I was no longer in the position, and that? They would never again disregard me after that. I had been gone for precisely 3 weeks. I hadn't noticed them, had not conversed with them. Except for a call from my landlord verifying my rent payment, I hadn't returned any calls. However, Jason sent me an email that week. Subject: please attend Dad's retirement party. One looked at it for a long time. Don't apologize. No recognition. It was only an invitation, as if nothing had occurred. Everyone will be there, he wrote. Aunt Gina is even flying in. Without you, it wouldn't feel right. Really? That was a lot of money. I had never felt comfortable doing it. However, I said yes for some reason, not because I didn't see them. However, because I had finished hiding, the time had come. I purposely came 15 minutes late. There were many people in the hall. Food platters, laughter, decorations, and the same worn-out music that Dad always enjoyed. I watched them for a while in the doorway. Jason was wearing a blazer that was too snug on him. Clara's phony chuckle reverberated throughout the space. Mom, as usual, pacing and micromanaging. The evening's main attraction, Dad, was seated at the head table, grinning broadly as usual. They haven't yet noticed me. So I entered. Be calm, erect-backed, and by themselves. Mom was the first to notice me. Her expression wavered between astonishment, guilt, and displeasure. She approached with her arms extended. She said pleasantly, I wasn't sure you'd come. I didn't give her a hug. I didn't grin. I nearly didn't. She hesitated. I'm pleased with what you did, though. You have been missed by all. I remained silent, simply continued to walk. Clara got to her feet at the table. Observe who chose to accompany us. Jason gave a hesitant clap. Our girl is there. Our girl. What a farce. I took a seat, declined the meal politely, drank some water. The atmosphere felt snug. They all seemed to sense something was off, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it. They attempted to strike up a conversation, pretended, and I gave them permission, for a time. After then, Dad spoke, concerning sacrifice, regarding family, regarding the ones who consistently arrive. Even though I felt like laughing, I held back. People applauded when he was done. Then, as usual, Mom suggested, let's take a picture. All of them together. Naturally, pictures. Her favorite show. We formed a line. Clara seized the lead. Jason stood by Dad's side. Mom set them up like a chessboard. Sweetheart, would you be able to take the picture? She turned to face me. My mouth tightened. I couldn't remember how many times I had heard that line. Would you be able to snap the photo? Would you be able to bake the cake? Would you be able to retrieve the decorations? In order for us to shine, could you do everything? Not today, though. I gave her a direct look. No, she blinked. I'm sorry. I took a step forward. I'm not going to take the photo. It includes me. No matter how you feel about it. Everybody froze. Jason tried to diffuse the tension by half laughing. Don't be so serious, geez. I looked over at him. Are you even aware of my current residence? He scowled. Why? Are you aware of my current employment, where I moved, or what I've been up to over the last 3 weeks? Nobody responded. Clara gave an eye roll. Is this what we're doing here? I said. Yes, loud enough to silence the room. This is what we're doing here. I made my way to the front, turned to face the throng, confronted my family. This family never included me. This family did not include me in any way. The assistance was mine, the chef. The person is running errands. The one who remained silent and filled in the blanks, so that you could all act as though we were flawless. The room was filled with murmurs. However, I no longer do it. Mom moved forward and said in a shaky voice, Avoid becoming dramatic, I said, holding out my phone. I'm not. Do you want anything dramatic? I got the document open. It was a collection. Screenshots. I have screenshots, text messages, and voicemails, pictures of every gathering I planned, every meal I prepared, and every duty I took care of while they unwound. I'd recorded it all. I sent it to myself, supported it, silent service for years. And now? It had a voice now. Clara's face turned white. As if it had deceived him, Jason gazed at the television. Dad's mouth clenched. And me? I was at ease. I had never felt colder. I came here to bid you farewell, I said. I said this not just to Dad, but to all of you. To the role you all kept me in, however. Your housekeeper is not me. I don't look after you. You don't think of me after the fact. I'm not your maid. Your sister is me. Your daughter. Your equal. I will only appear where I am treated as such from now on. There was silence in the room, utterly still. For the first time, they were at a loss for words. I then grabbed my bag, surveyed the area, and stated, "Have fun at your party. I have more important things to do." After that, I left. They were the ones that saw me go this time. Additionally, this time, I didn't turn around. Only a week was needed. A week. Their well-planned world started to fall apart 7 days after I left that retirement party. Little things were the first, the kind that would go unnoticed unless you were looking closely. However, I was. On Monday, Jason texted everyone in the group. Does anyone know how to reset the circuit breaker? There is no power, nobody answered. I would have driven over normally. I made the necessary adjustments quietly, departed prior to dinner. However, it is no longer the case. Then Wednesday arrived. Clara shared a photo of her children having cereal for supper on social media. Caption, "Motherhood is crazy." It nearly made me chuckle. She used to make fun of me for being overly fixated on routines and organization, that I had no idea how to unwind. Okay, greetings from reality. I received a call from Aunt Gina on Friday. Are you all right? I blinked. Yes. Why? Your mother has been phoning everyone. She claims that you embarrassed the entire family by storming out, that you're erratic. I inhaled. Did she explain my departure to you? Quiet. The portion where she asked me to take the picture was not mentioned. Or how I managed the house like a hotel manager. Or how I was deemed too sensitive. Aunt Gina let out a sigh. I assumed she didn't mention it. She hesitated. To be honest, you have my admiration. That's all I wanted to say. My throat constricted. Such was the first time a member of the family had said such in years. No, thank you. Can't you help? But you have my admiration. Chaos erupted back at the house in the meantime. Mom attempted to host a Sunday meal. I neglected to thaw the chicken. Jason voiced his displeasure in the group conversation. Clara spilled wine on the carpet while bringing food. The dishwasher broke. Nobody was able to fix it. Apparently, Dad urged everyone to stop bringing up pointless topics with him. Their well-maintained machine suddenly jammed. Because of the one who maintained it, disappeared. I refrained from boasting. I didn't share revenge selfies or cryptic statements. I simply survived. Silently. Calmly. I woke up feeling like I owed no one anything for the first time in my life. When I wanted to, I got up, consumed what I enjoyed, worked, slept. Every Sunday morning, I took a stroll by the river close to my flat. Downstairs was a little cafe. By the third time, they were aware of my order. With a smile, the barista would say, "Almond latte, no sugar, extra hot." I would smile back, nod, and consider, this. Freedom is this. Healing, however, took time. I still occasionally catch myself grabbing my phone to see how they're doing. Habit, not affection, no more. Making dinner, folding clothes, filling Clara's diaper bag, picking up Jason's dry cleaners, and creating Mom's shopping list were all part of my dream one night. My heart was pounding as I woke up. Then I looked around, saw my white walls in the moonlight. I sensed the silence, and recalled, I've moved on from that phase of my life. Mom arrived at my residence a week later, unexpected. With a tight smile on her face and a grocery bag in hand, she shifted on her feet as she stood in the corridor. You might be running low, I thought. I didn't fully open the door. I'm all right. She paused. May I enter? I stopped, then went outdoors instead. I would want to speak outside. Her face lowered slightly. She gave the bag to me. It had a frozen chicken, canned soup, and rice. I glanced up at her. She made herself laugh. Isn't it like the old days? No, I answered quietly. No more. She let out a breath. Your father believes you've made your point, though. Thus, could we all please just get over this? Have you expressed regret? I inquired. She blinked. Sorry? For the way you handled me. For taking advantage of me, I feel hurt and betrayed. For never expressing gratitude, she scowled. I believe the situation might be perceived as more significant than it is. We share a connection, we don't maintain score. I gazed at her. I grinned as well. That's the difference, he added. Since you were never required to bear the burden, you never kept track. I then returned the grocery bag to her. I'm not upset. I'm simply finished. She appeared in disbelief, unable to speak. I gave a courteous nod and shut the door. I lit a candle that evening, huddled on my sofa. As the rain drummed against the windows, I listened. Additionally, for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, I refrained from crying. I wasn't feeling depleted or resentful, perhaps even arrogant. I simply felt complete. I received a letter a few days later, written by hand, from Clara. It stated, "Now I understand. I didn't previously. I apologize. I'm not expecting anything in return. However, I'm hoping you'll allow me to strive to improve one day." I spent a lot of time sitting with that letter, didn't reply, also didn't tear it up. I simply put it in my journal, not as a pledge, merely as a record of the wall's initial fissure. And perhaps, just possibly, that's where recovery starts. Not with apologies, however, with space and tranquility, and the decision to never again carry more than is necessary. I still occasionally see them. Jason shares pictures from his hikes over the weekend. On Facebook, Clara posts quotes about parenting. Mom sends her uplifting emails about family harmony and forgiveness, something she had never seen before. I don't answer, however, I can see them from afar. And that's sufficient. I didn't disappear. I remained intact. I didn't grow resentful or aloof. I just went with something better. Something more subdued, my own. My life isn't glamorous right now. It's not a fantasy of retaliation where I become wealthy and well-known only to sour relations with them. No, it's simply calm. And that seems to be the greatest victory of all. Alarms don't wake me up. Sunshine does. I prepare meals for myself. I make mistakes with the seasoning occasionally. It's ideal at times. It's always just for me, though. I take walks. I read. I'm laughing more. I cry too, but not because I'm tired or invisible. When anything touches me, I cry. When I'm moved, when I'm broken, no. I gained new acquaintances. Those who don't count on my assistance, who don't cringe when I refuse. I learned how to crochet from one of them, Rachel. We sip iced tea and discuss everything and nothing while sitting on our balcony. It feels secure. It has a homey atmosphere. Old memories can occasionally creep in. From the kitchen came the yell of my name. They used to shout, "She'll take care of it," as they threw dishes in the sink. I never had a birthday candle of my own, but I lighted the candles for everyone else. In the past, it was like a bruise. Right now, it's only a scar. Gentle, recovered. However, a reminder, a few weeks ago I met Clara, of all places at a bookshop. She appeared thinner, weary. Before I could answer no, she gave me a hug. "I've been studying," she said. "Now I wash the dishes. Laundry as well. I was unaware of how much you did." I said very little, simply nodded. She didn't invite anyone to visit, didn't request a conversation. "I hope you're happy," she said. I also didn't feel the need to explain for once, since I was. "Yes, I am. Recently I was asked by my therapist, 'Do you miss them?' I considered it. We acted as though the laughs we were having were genuine. Regarding the holidays, I worked from sunrise to sunset in the kitchen, in the hopes that one day someone would say, "We see you." I talked about the hundreds of ways I twisted myself into something helpful, and I added, "No, they are not missed. I miss the me who believed things would change. That version is no longer available. And give thanks to God. I now reside in a little townhouse, with mismatched mugs and yellow curtains. I forget to water the plants. The floor was piled high with books. It's disorganized. However, it belongs to me. It's true. And I'm no longer expected to pick up after them. I still occasionally cook. Now, though, when I do, I hum. I also consume the first portion. I lit the candles for my own birthday. I also wish, only for me, I didn't abandon my family in order to harm them. To save myself, I went out. And I've discovered that's not selfish. It is a matter of survival. It's love for oneself. because no one realizes the weight you've been carrying until you finally put it down. It's the kind of bravery that nobody cheers for. Should you be reading this? In your own life, have you ever felt like the supporting character? If you've ever been the reliable one, the quiet one, or the assistant, I hope you are aware of this. You're not invisible. A servant is not what you are. Moving on from folks who only call you when they need something doesn't make you selfish. You can take a nap. When love is no longer being served, you are free to leave the table. You are free to occupy space as a complete, deserving human being, not as someone's maid, fixer, or filler. I was referred to as the helper. I was referred to as the silent one. I was referred to as the maid. Now, though, I refer to myself as free.